Hello, Dr. Peterson. Thank you for coming. We all appreciate it a lot. I wanted to get your opinion on censorship that we're seeing on the web. It's accelerating. You were a very notable example. You were locked out of your Gmail and
Me
your
and
YouTube
Trump.
account. Pardon me? Yeah, Trump just got deleted by an errant person. You know, now they're saying that perhaps this was just a contractor. And, you know, maybe someone from Twitter who's gone in a very far left direction. YouTube has gone in a very far left direction. I'm just wondering, I've started an alternative to YouTube called PewTube. What kind of, what do you see for possible solutions and just your thoughts in general
Here's an
on
ugly
censorship?
thought. It's a crazy thought, but I'm going to tell it to you anyways. So I was just reading one of Ray Kurzweil's books. I think it was called How to Make a Mind. I really liked it, actually. It helped me understand how the brain compresses information, because the world's really complicated, eh? So you have to make a low-resolution representation of it to live in it. And he actually explained to me in a way that I hadn't really understood how the brain might do that neurologically. So that was cool. But you know, Kurzweil's this guy who thinks that he's a smart guy, very smart guy. And he's invented a fair bit of high-end technological software and hardware. And he's the guy that thinks that we're heading towards the singularity. And so the singularity is, you know how processing speed doubles every 18 months and like hard disk capacity every year, and there's a bunch of doublings going on, a huge number of them, and they accelerate exponentially. And so we're probably 3 years away, maybe even less, than from building a computer that has the capacity to make as many calculations as reasonable estimates of the calculating capacity of the human brain are currently set at. 18 months away, 2 years away, something like that. And then we're 18 months away from having one that's twice that fast, and then 18 months away from having one that's twice as fast as that. So that's like, say, 6 years. And we've got something that's 8 times as smart as a human being. But there's a twist on that, and this is Kurzweil's twist, which is as soon as you make a machine smart enough to make the next machine that's smarter than it, which is sort of what we're doing, because computers are so fast that will scale up to near infinite computing power almost instantaneously. Now, you think, no, probably not. And Ellen, Gates' partner, has written critiques of Kurzweil, and you know, you might think if something's impossible, then it won't happen, even if you don't know why. And there's reasons to not think that that will happen. But Kurzweil's traced back the doubling of computing power way before the existence of the transistor. And it's been ridiculously stable, crazily stable. So God only knows what we're coming up with here. You know, and you don't know what something of infinite computing power might be like. Like, you seriously don't know. And there are serious people who are very, very, very worried about that. They're very worried, for example, that companies like Facebook and Google will manage that first. And you know, those companies are already making censorship AI bots. And that's not that smart. It's sort of like making really fast robots that can shoot people. It's not that smart. And we're doing that too, very rapidly. And you know, I know some guys who work in advanced AI. And you know how you watch the Terminator movies and you see the robots that miss when they shoot at you? Like, they're not very bright, because the bright ones not only shoot at where you are, but they estimate where you're going to be when you make your escape moves, and they shoot there simultaneously, and their death rate is 100%. And so there's no war against the robots. I mean, when those things get going, they're going to be so much faster than us that we'll look like we're moving through molasses to them. So, you know, so maybe what we're deciding now with all of our individual decisions about censorship and the way that we're going to construct the world and all that is exactly what kind of superintelligence we're going to bring into being. And I would suggest that we try to bring one in that's good and moral rather than one that's evil and demonic. Right. So, what can we do about that? There's only one answer to that, as far as I know, that works, is get your act together. You're going to be the person who's working in AI, right? I know some of these people. They better be good people, because they're going to build whatever they're like into their machines. So they better have their heads screwed on straight. because they're going to get amplified like mad. And I don't like what's happening with Google and Facebook and YouTube. They're building censorship bots predicated on a certain kind of ideology, the kind of ideology that we outlined today. It's a very bad idea. Hopefully good people will stop that. So then what that means is that your moral obligation is to be good. And the way you do that is first by stopping being bad. And everyone can do that, a little bit. So I hope that's what everyone does, because the consequences of not doing it are not going to be pleasant. They never are.
Thank you.
Hi. This question is about your biblical lecture series. I like that one because it's about Genesis, which is usually ignored as being, we're this post-enlightenment society, we don't need these ancient creation myths. And also I thought Revelations kind of gets the same treatment as being dismissed because it's the
Crazy hallucinogenic trip, that's why?
of some isolated madman in the middle of the Mediterranean. So I was wondering if after you're done with Genesis, if you would think about doing Revelations.
Not without traversing the geography in between.
Okay.
Yeah, I want to walk through the whole thing if I can do that before I expire. So I mean, I've read it and thought about it, and like, it's such a strange book, because it's really big among the evangelical Republican types, and you'd think, really, really, that's the book that you're relying. Have you read it? It's a crazy hallucinogenic trip. That's what Revelation is. Now, that's not to play it down, because God only knows about crazy hallucinogenic trips. That's for sure. I mean, there's accruing evidence, I would say, that a tremendous amount of the religious orientation of human beings, that deep mythological, symbolic orientation, is in no small part a consequence of humanity's experimentation with psychedelic substances. I think the evidence for that, I think, has become virtually overwhelming. So, anyways, I will get there, maybe. Probably not, because at the rate I'm going through the first stories, it'll take me forever to get there. Right. But that's okay. So,
Hey, thank you.
Yeah.
Dr. Peterson, thank you, first of all. It's a great pleasure being here. It's awesome to see you live. I basically got into your works just earlier this year, and I had an original question, but your talk today kind of made me decide to change my mind on what I was going to ask. Do you feel as though, would you agree with me in the sentiment that the left has pushed so hard for total control of our society over the last however many years? It's almost to a point where saying 2013 was a different time. Would you say that because they pushed so hard, they've created this backlash, and the backlash caused them to backlash back again, so they doubled down with their ideology, and then they lose another argument, they lose another ideological war, they lose another meme war, and they double down and they double down again and again, and they can't seem to meme, they can't seem to argue, they don't want to have an intellectual discussion, and as an interpretation of what you were saying, there doesn't seem to be any care of what's right with them. They just want power. They just want to win. Would you agree with the sentiment that they're burning themselves out and creating the mass red pilling of the conservative movement that we see going on? Would you possibly think that maybe they've committed suicide, and talks like this, people like yourself, Ben Shapiro, and others who talk to people like the subjects that we do, the taboo of nowadays, possibly that this is the answer to defeat the leftist stranglehold that's on our society?
Okay, so we'll untangle some of that. Okay, so first of all, the first observation is a really interesting one, because you know that things can go out of hand very, very rapidly.
Yeah.
And the reason they do that is because of positive feedback loops. Now, the thing that Kurzweil talks about is a positive feedback loop. An intelligent machine makes another intelligent machine that makes another intelligent machine. And that's a positive feedback loop, and that can spiral upwards out of control very rapidly. And that's what polarization is. It's like, I tap you, you tap me. I slap you, you punch me. Well, up it goes. Well, I think that's partly why in the New Testament, for example, there's an injunction that says, turn the other cheek, resist not evil. Why? Because otherwise you get into a positive feedback loop and then you better look the hell out. And things can tilt very, very rapidly. I mean, all you have to do, look at what happened in World War I. No one expected that. It was like one relatively minor member, I think, of the aristocracy, if I remember correctly, was assassinated in one minor little country. It's like, bang, everything fell apart. And that's positive feedback loops, right? And so that's what we're in right now. And we've got to be, and that's a really chaotic time. And so I would say, maintain self-control and don't aim to win. Aim at peace. Because winning, that's not peace. It's better to aim for peace. You know, and I've got this talk coming up on November 11th. I'm quite worried about it because I know there's going to be protesters there and that they've been emboldened by the fact that they shut the talk down before. And I want to make a video, I'll probably do it tomorrow, telling everyone that comes to that meeting to, like, watch their bloody step and stay out of the gutter. Because you just, we're at a point now where under the wrong circumstances, if the wrong person does the wrong thing, that the consequences will be very grave. Now, we can't predict which action is going to precipitate that, or even if that will happen. But it's chaotic enough so that it could happen. So, you know, so govern yourselves accordingly. Now, the problem is that there are people who would be happy if there was blood running in the street. They're the same sort of people that shoot up high schools or kill innocent, you know, elementary school kids just to show what they're made of and what they believe. And that's a big problem. But for the rest of us, like, hopefully calmer heads can prevail. And so it really is important not to win. It's like fighting with your wife. You don't win. You can't, because you have to live with her. You can't win. But maybe you can solve the problem and bring about peace. And so you got to practice doing that. Practice restraint. Now, and remember, too, that the people that you're talking about who are radical leftists, is most of the time they're not. Like, they're 95% like you. And if you pull them out of the mob, they're just like your neighbor's 19-year-old kid who's kind of clueless and rebellious, right? And who you might even like. You put them in the mob, it's a whole different thing. And so you got to remember that too.
Out of fear of social isolation. It's kind of how they're acting out, you're saying.
No, it's just that they're possessed by these ideas, but only partially. You know, you hardly find a full-blooded, absolutely committed, radical leftist activist, you know, like there are some, but not very many. Most of it is just fragmentary behavior. And you have to remember that. Like when the students come out to protest me, was the case particularly at McMaster, I have to remember these kids, they're not much different than my kids. They are when they're in a stupid mob behind a hammer and sickle flag, you know, but you don't want to make a low-resolution, homogeneous representation of them. And so that's why, again, I think instead of winning, you turn to your own development. You turn to your own development. You do what you can to stop doing the things that you're doing that aren't good. Because you're not going to hurt anybody if you do that. All you're going to do is help. And otherwise, you'll participate in this polarization. And that's, unless you want that, and you know, there's a dark part of people that, it's part of the part that voted for Trump, would like to burn things to the ground. It's like, to hell, I know how people felt when they went into the voting booth. It was like, Hillary, Hillary, to hell with it, Trump. You know, and that's a hell of a thing to say, to hell with it, you know. Although I could certainly understand that sentiment. So we have to be careful. And all of you people who are here, who are advocates of free speech and who are theoretically happy to come hear me speak, it's like, I really do believe it. I truly believe this. And this is something I learned in part from Solzhenitsyn and in part from Jung, is that the way that you set the world straight is by constraining the malevolence in your own heart. And that's no joke, man. That's no easy thing. And that's a good voyage for people to go on if they want something difficult and worthwhile to do. So.
Thank you very much.
Okay, just a quick thing. We're not going to have time for pictures, so unless yours is the last question. Okay, so sorry to everybody else, but you're the last one. Okay.
Hi, Dr. Peterson. Thanks for coming. My question is a little bit off topic from everything else tonight, but I really wanted to hear what you had to say about it.